Just got back from London. Um, I meant to have recorded something earlier today because I went for a house viewing flat it's pretty central. It's around Elephant and Castle. It's one of the newer buildings there. I'll I'll put a little clip of some of the house. I think it'd be nice. Anyway, um, yeah. I'm honestly very interested in the prospect of moving to London, or at least getting a place there. Not necessarily moving there full time, but it's getting a place that I can stay at, spending some more time there. I like the city a lot, and it's just one of those cities that like everybody goes through. And anyway, I've been feeling a little bit cooped up in Lisbon, and so I think a change of scenery would be nice. Tomorrow morning I have a call at 8:30. It's a bit early for me, but make it happen because it's a client. I have to think a little bit about things. I have a lot of reflections going on about the kind of business model that I run, especially around kind of I know that there's space for recruiting, but that is how do I there's a company that actually does kind of recruiting that my friend works at, and I'm really interested in speaking to them a little bit more, um, and trying to get a feel for things there. I'm also thinking about, like, if I go to London, it's not just like, so let me take you through the thinking process of, like, actually, if I like, what are the things that go into this decision? The way that I'm thinking about this decision from a financial perspective, just for transparency's sake, I don't like to discuss numbers, but it would not be an inconsequential financial decision. So that is to say, it would be like it's something I have to look at the numbers and be like, okay, can I afford this or not? Because London is a significantly more expensive city, and I am well off where I am now because I don't like having fixed costs, right? Because it means that I can play with everything. I can throw myself at things and whatever. Now, if I move to London, I certainly take on a new burden in terms of costs, and that is it's a significant and a consequential one. So that is worth acknowledging. Now, I was speaking with my girlfriend about it, and she was like, oh, like, are you worried about the money or whatever? I don't think it makes sense to worry about the money as long as you know that you can figure things out. And that is something I'm confident I can do. Like, I know that I can pay for things. I know that I've made enough money to pay for more than this. So, like, I know that I can afford it, but it's not inconsequential. And, you could ask, oh, what about saving or whatever else? The way I think about these things is, especially when you're younger, like if you have two opportunities and one of them clearly makes you a more interesting person, I would say always try and do the more interesting one. So I've already, like, I've never lived in London. I think that will make me a more interesting person because it adds to this like kaleidoscope of experiences that I have as a person. And I think the more different experiences you have and can try from, the more different flavors you've had, the more interesting and wise you become as a person. And in turn, I think that just has a huge return on investment on a personal fundamental level. This is just my approach to life in general. It's just I think I optimize to have more interesting stories to tell. I think that makes my life more full and rich. Um, Now, that being said, the things I'm actually thinking more about is what does this imply for my day to day? So, for example, I would have, I'm not going to rent a full place for myself. I don't want to be, it's more expensive, and I'm going to be alone the whole time, and I can't afford as nice a place. So it's with roommates. Some, they're consultants and investment bankers, interesting people. I think if you move in with roommates, the roommates that you move in with can make such a huge difference, and this is why I only want to consider places that have people who I think I find interesting and who are cool, and like these people came from referrals, so I have mutual friends, whatever, so I trust, and you know that's gonna have a big impact. But also, I'm gonna spend most of my time alone. Now, at the moment, I'm here, especially because of my grandpa, like for family reasons and things like that. But if I move, that changes my lifestyle a lot. That means I spend a hell of a lot more time alone by myself because I don't have anybody there living with me other than those roommates who all have office jobs and they're going to spend a lot of time out. And even myself, if I get an office, I might get a WeWork, whatever, co-working space, whatever it is. I'm spending a lot of time by myself unless I make an active effort. It also means I take on new burdens in terms of like I have to deal with everything from like cooking and things like that. Here, it's not something that I always have to like. I do have to cook and stuff as well, but it's not as big a kind of worry. Um, and those are some of the benefits of obviously kind of staying home or having family around sometimes. And everybody's situation is different, so that just happens to be mine. But it's the impact on like what does my key reflections around this decision have been, what does my day-to-day actually look like? Is that something that I want, right? Is it a day-to-day that I find appealing? And then the second thing is, how do I actually make the most of the fact that I'm in London? I don't want to just go to London and work from home for 10 months or whatever it is. Like that's useless because at that point, what's the point of me having gone there? I might as well have just done that here. Sure, I feel cooped up or whatever, but feeling cooped up is not a big enough reason for me to spend this amount of money to feel better about my. It just doesn't make sense. So I have to actually think about like how can I make more use of it and like I know for a fact that being in the right places creates more serendipity because you run into the right people, whatever. But you only create that if you go to the events, if you're meeting people. Okay, so if I'm meeting people, if I'm going out, what implications does that have on my cost? Because going out and meeting people, this is something I learned from a friend of mine a long time ago, but I consider this guy a really good networker, and he's always doing random things. He's up to all kinds of hobbies. He's baking, fishing, going to wine clubs, watch clubs, playing poker, whatever it is. He's doing all these different like hobbies, and I think it's one of the best ways to network actually because you build trust outside of the business context, which is a different, more genuine kind of trust as a friend, and those friendships are really valuable. But you have to be willing to spend money. Now, you don't have to be, you don't have to be doing the most expensive things, the extravagant things. You don't need to do necessarily that, but you can't do everything for free. There will be, like you don't have to be going to watch clubs necessarily because that's obviously got a high barrier to entry. But you like if you want to go play tennis with people, there's probably a tennis club that they all go to. And the more interesting people they are, like or let's say the more wealthy they are, they're gonna be going to more expensive and nicer places. And you have to be able to at least kind of keep up. You don't have to match in everything, but yeah, that has certain implications. If I want to be going out and if I want to be making the most of London, like London's an expensive city. You want to go out for cocktails, you want to go to nice places, you're gonna be paying a lot. And like how do I fit that into the budget and all of that, and can I make sure that has a return on my investment? The biggest I would say difficulty is that you can't make sure. There's no there is no fundamentally there's no like um how do I word it, there's no guarantee. The best lead gen methods are the ones where it's most difficult to assign numbers to. At least I have found, like email open rates and whatever. You have the numbers and the percentages, and you can do some math. Okay, if I email 10,000 people, I get 100 to reply. Blah blah blah. Those historically have been the worst lead gen ways I've found, and the best have always been through relationships. They get better clients, longer lasting. All of the better fitting clients, but that you never know how long it takes. You don't have the numbers to predict when the next one comes in through the door. You only collect that data over time, and that's a scary prospect to face because it's uncertainty. At the end of the day, though, in business, uncertainty, that is the game that you are playing. That is literally what you signed up for. It is uncertain. That is the entire point. Risk and reward, they come hand in hand, and so the risk is the uncertainty, and you have to deal with that. So yeah, that's been a little bit of my thought process. I would say I'm a little bit scatterbrained right now. I'm also tired, and so my train of thought is probably a little bit messy, but that's how I've been thinking about things. I think the main thing is I want to be exposed to more interesting companies. I want to spend time in cities where people are doing more interesting things, and I think London is one of those cities. I want to be in the biggest cities because I think that makes a difference. I'm talking London, Dubai, New York, Singapore I have access to, but I want to develop more business in the West at the moment. That's because I work with a lot of startups and things like that, and the West wins in terms of startups. But even in Asia, like whatever, I want to be spending time in more of these big cities, and I think that like it can make it makes a huge impact, right? Where you live makes a huge impact on your life and the people you run into. There's this big culture around like remote work, go to Bali and just remote work from there. I'm all for spending a week and a half there, but I couldn't live there for a prolonged period of time because that's not me. Like I like the intensity of big cities. Now, granted, that's not everybody. I've got clients who run startups and they're like, they just want to chill. They want to build something cool, but they don't want to be in some kind of crazy city. That's not me though. I enjoy that. I enjoy the kind of craziness, but I want to make use of it as well. And yeah, so my key considerations right now are like, I also tried to think, are there any big decisions like this that I've made before? And I haven't moved to a different city like this before. So I can't really say. I don't have much data to look on. And so it is a decision somewhat in the dark, but I go back to that criteria of like, what makes me a more interesting person, and I'm optimizing for learning. And so the more of these decisions, let's say I move and it's a mistake, whatever, it's better to learn now than to learn in 5 years, because like I have that lesson, so like I can accrue more knowledge faster, more lessons, more life lessons by just trying and messing up and failing. And yeah, like it's some people think, oh, it's like, oh, you're doing so well, whatever, how are you doing that? And it's like, I've failed more times than you've even tried. I've failed more times than you've tried. I don't know where I saw this quote somewhere, but I really like it. That part, that idea is like, I think really nice. And so that comes, with these kinds of decisions. I think they have to be made, but that doesn't mean I have to be stupid about them. I have to, you have to think about things like, it's not just you rent a place and that's it. There's food, there's transport. What are you going to do? Like all the miscellaneous bits and bobs. Like, what about your insurance? Do you need travel insurance? Do you phone bills, data plans, all these things? Like, account for these things because they will all add up. They will add up in these tiny little expenses at the back of your mind. You never think about them until they show up at on your monthly bill, and you're like, okay, how the hell am I going to work this one out? And it's not even like, how the hell do I work this one out, right? Like, they just show up and you pay them, but they add up over time. And then you look at how much you've spent and you're like, okay, that's a lot more than I had bargained for. It's like, it definitely will shorten my runway by a lot. And my burn rate will go up significantly. But I still believe that fundamentally I can make it work. It's just a case of like, how do I make? I think it's worth it. I just have to think about, how do I make this make sense, and how do I make the most of this? How do I actually make it worth it? How do I do? Is it the day to day that I want? Is this closer to the life that I ultimately want, or further? And I think it's definitely closer. But so yeah. Anyway, I have plenty to think about. I'll probably leave a little clip of the house tour. Yeah. I think some people, like, it's actually the first property I've viewed in London. Some people might be like, oh, why don't you look at other places, whatever. I don't want to be looking at like huge commercial platforms because I want to know the roommates. I want to be able to trust them. That's a big thing for me. And then also, it's just because I think as you get older, you probably get pickier with the place that you are. But when you're young, it's like the amount of time spent looking for a slightly better deal just doesn't make sense. Like, I like this one, whatever. I like it. It's good. Gives me access to the place that I want, which is London. I don't need to be stressing about like 100 different options. It just, like, pick something, go with it. If you like it, good. If it's not, if it's there's this, like, I don't know who came up with it, but it's like, if it's not fuck yes, then it's a no. In this case, I felt a bit of a fuck yes. So that does it enough for me. I don't need to contemplate my decision much more in terms of like which place I would get. It just comes down to like, does this entire London decision make sense or not? So that's it. I'm gonna have a little think about things for my call tomorrow because I gotta prepare a tiny bit, and I'm gonna pass out.